Oh, yeah, we're not recording. Okay, now we are.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. All right. Yeah, sure.
All right, so I'm Sebastian Weiss, founder of Outcast Press.
I'm Cody Sexton, founder of Anxiety Press, aka the Slutty Intellectual.
All right, so we have our guest today, which is Nevada, and we will get to you in just a moment here, but we have to do some plugging. All right, so first, people pick up our debut anthology, And Filth It Shall Be Found. Right now, as of this recording, it's heavily discounted. It's almost 60% off. So if you haven't picked it up yet, pick it up. We don't, I mean, Amazon chooses the price that they slash it at. So, you know, pick it up while it's hot, um, or discounted rather. Then we've got through Anxiety Press, we've got my debut poetry book, which is funny. Somebody, is everything in here true? Well, I mean, to the best of my recollection, to the best of my recollection, and memory's fallible, obviously, but there's nothing that I just made up. I didn't do a. Who was that one asshole that was on Oprah?
Oh yeah, James Frey.
It's not a James Frey situation where I'm just making shit up. It's if there's any falsehoods in here, it's due to my own memory. All right, there's that, and then there's Slut Vomit, which was released in May 5th, May 15th. Doing pretty well. It's getting some good reviews, getting some good buzz. Um, and finally, part of the commercial part of this segment, there's this is purely self-serving on my part. There's the Hellbound Kids, which I'm part of the series. I was lucky enough to get invited on to contribute, a chapter to each one of their volumes. And plus, we've got Nevada's book, which she will talk about. We got Jack Moody's book, which, if you like Bukowski, um, if you like the rawness of Bukowski, you'll like Jack Moody's stuff. He doesn't write like Bukowski, but the sentiment is there. And we've got Austin Davis, outstanding poet, outstanding human being. He was on a previous podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, we've got Sean McCallum, he's the first novel that we published, the recalcitrant stuff of life. And all these books, except Slut Vomit, are some degree of discount, right? They can range from like 15 to, I think, Nevada, yours is close to, I think it's like 25.
I think
Jack's
so.
is like 30.
It was on
Yeah.
a recent post I saw. It was good. Yeah, it's a discount.
It's a discount. It's so, I mean, yeah, I mean, definitely pick it up if you want, if you're, and, you know, yeah, if you want stuff that's raw, real, and stuff that the mainstream publishing industry is not going to want to touch with a 10-foot pole because they want to play it safe,
Yeah.
And Cody, you're much the same way. So you got to plug your stuff. And don't forget your own books. You forget your own book sometimes. It's a shame. So plug your stuff, bro.
Yeah, so pick up a copy of the latest book we got, latest anthology, Anxious Nothings, Volume 1. It's a great book, or I think it's a great book. It's got a piece from Sebastian in there, too. A great ass-eating story, if you're into that sort of thing. Pick up Screw Factory, Edward Anke. Pick up White Paint Falling Through a Filtered Shaft, Adam Johnson. If you want to pick up my book, I'm not sure. I mean, you can pick up American Bullshit or Also Critics of Life or Too Many Things Came to Nothing. That one's the latest one. So, just check it out at thensideanxiety.com. All the information's there.
And BF Jones has her excellent Flash collection, which is outstanding.
Carson, Patel.
Yeah, Carson.
Yeah, a lot of great writers. Yeah, a lot of good stuff.
All right. So, with the commercial aspect out of the way, let's introduce our guests. Thank you for bearing with us as we did our little commercial. Nevada McPherson. Tell us,
Hey.
introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and tell us about Poser.
Okay. Well, can you hear me okay? Is the sound doing okay?
Oh yeah. We can hear you clear. It's actually going better than I usually. We hear some lag problems. You're actually very. This is very stable so far. So
Good. Okay. Well, I live in Milledgeville, Georgia right now. I'm originally from Georgia. I lived in New Orleans for several years, and I'm back in Milledgeville, and I teach English at Georgia Military College here. And I started on Poser many years ago. Actually, it was originally a screenplay. I was spending some time out in Palo Alto, California. My husband was teaching a summer camp, like a debate summer camp out at Stanford. And I just spent a lot of time walking around the neighborhoods there, and I got inspired. I saw this visual one day that kind of inspired aspects of Poser. I was walking by this yard and I could see in the back, I couldn't see the person exactly, but I could see someone, kind of the edge of someone sitting under like a cocktail, like a table with an umbrella. And they had this beautiful martini sitting in front of them. And I was like, there's a story there that's just kind of evocative. There's just something about it that stuck with me. But anyway, I wrote the screenplay, and I realized later, I liked the screenplay okay, but I felt like there was so much more that could be added to it, and that it could be expanded a lot. And so I wrote Poser, and Cody designed the book cover, which I love. And so, yeah, thank you, Cody. But it's about this young man. He runs away from an abusive home in Texas, and he ends up in the San Francisco Bay Area, dealing drugs, and he angers his boss. He also works part time at S&M dungeon, and he angers his boss so much. His boss is really out to get him, and so his friend, who's a receptionist at the S&M place, recommends that or suggests that maybe he could go stay at her sister's guest house down in Palo Alto. And what she doesn't tell him until they get there, like to the sister's house, sitting in the driveway, is that, oh yeah, and I told her that you're a Stanford grad student, just so she'd be more comfortable. She'd kind of know that you're not just, maybe you're not just here to party, and she might be, it might help, help her say yes to letting you stay here. And so he starts out like having to live this double life in a way, and that continues in many ways throughout the book in kind of various aspects, and even throughout the series. And so that's kind of the setup of it.
Yeah, I mean, when you first pitched it, and I thought this is a great pitch because it's pretty accurate. As I remember, like, you were saying it was kind of a mix of Desperate Housewives and Breaking Bad, right?
Right.
That's pretty accurate, right? It's got kind of the dramatic, how do I say it? Like the interesting dynamic that you find in Desperate Housewives, but it's also got the great, how do I put this? Like, one of the many things you're great at is, like Breaking Bad was great at, which was showing bad decisions and then showing consequences, and then more bad decisions, and it kind of accumulating. Because like that's one of the brilliance, in my opinion, of Breaking Bad was just
one of the things I love about it.
yeah, which is just everything that Walter White did, he would have to then do something else to try to cover up, and it would just build and build, and there was always sort of this nice consequence of, he was always trying to get out of something. He was always just consumed by telling bigger lies, more lies to cover up just a mountain of lies. And you do much the same, is that these characters make endless bad decisions. They make endless bad decisions, and they're punished for them. So, yeah, I mean, it's really great because I wasn't so sure. I got hair in my mouth. I wasn't so sure when we got it. I'm like, I wonder what audience this is going to appeal to, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't mean that in a bad. I'm like, I wonder if men are going to gravitate toward it, or women, but it seems like people, like, they just love it. Like, Manny's loved it. Jim Thompson's loved it. Trying to think.
There's some
Yeah,
ladies here in Milledgeville who say who say they loved it, and they're looking forward to the next one. So I was thrilled about that too. I'm just so appreciative of everyone that's read it, and I'm glad they've enjoyed it. I really set out. I wanted it to be a fun read. I wanted it to be, interesting characters, and I wanted it to be, fun. So it's got some, some bad stuff in it, but that's, I mean, I don't know. I wanted it to be something that people could get engaged in and care about the characters and get involved in the relationships. And, that was kind of when I set out. And one of the things, since it does kind of mix genres in some ways, is you were saying, like, what readers would this appeal to? I had to think about that when I started thinking about, when I had worked on it for a long time, and I started thinking about, okay, where am I going to pitch this? And I was like, I started looking at, how genre specific some publishers are. And I was like, wow, this kind of crosses, lines and genres and kind of mixes up different things. And so it was hard to figure out, like, how am I going to present that? But I'm glad that you all gave it a chance. I appreciate it so much. Y'all have been great to work with. And
well, I mean, I got to say thank you for bringing it to us. I mean, the in my view, the best fiction isn't pure. You can have some really good, and when I say pure, I mean like it fits nicely
I know,
into a
I
character.
know, I know
So
exactly.
yeah, and so some of the stuff that's really cool, like if somebody's really well read on noir, they're going to be
Mhm.
sucked in because you blend you have kind of a Southern Gothic vibe.
Yeah.
There's some romance elements in there. So yes, you can sort of place it in the noir category, but kind of not really. So, and that's kind of what we like. We like stuff that's not neatly placed, such that one can, a seasoned reader of, let's say, romance might be able to pick it up and still be satisfied, but also be like, wow, here's a different aspect. And now I'm exposed to noir and crime fiction. And so that's what is so wonderful. That's why when you juxtapose Desperate Housewives, which, got to be honest, never really watched the show. I've just seen snippets and I'm like, this looks like crap. But
It was kind of a dark nighttime soap opera. It had elements of humor in it, but it also had, murder and mayhem and deception. And it was kind of a dark,
yeah,
in many ways, it had drama, but it was in many ways a dark comedy. Probably, Breaking Bad would be more on the drama side. Desperate Housewives, it had a lot of kind of humorous elements, but it would turn really violent, sometimes. But one
would it
thing,
actually
I
would
love
it
about,
actually turn violent? I've never seen the Desperate Housewives. Would it turn
well, I
violent? I
mean,
thought it was
there'd
just
be
women
some murder
bickering.
and cover up, and there wasn't just an awful lot of, like murder mayhem, but there was some. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember when it was on, I really liked it. I liked the look of it and the vibe. It's kind of, I think it was actually filmed in the neighborhood where years ago they made Leave It to Beaver, that street where it shows Leave It to Beaver in the 1950s at the beginning. I think that was actually Wisteria Lane when they did Desperate Housewives. That's one of the things, I'm pretty sure that's right. I think I remember reading that. But it was this thing about, it was kind of like appearances versus the backstage reality of these people's lives kind of thing, which I find just fascinating in all different kinds of stories. But like what you were saying about noir, I mean, one thing that I love about noir in film and stories and books and narrative is that it cuts across genres. And so in other genres, like you might have a noir western or a noir sci-fi, and things like
Right.
that. So that's one of the things I love about it that, I found really interesting. And I don't know, I just started thinking as I was writing this is kind of has elements of noir, and even the dialogue and stuff like that. So, and then it has those other elements of the romance and stuff too. So.
Yeah, I mean, I too, I have to say, I'm fascinated by like, yeah, the kind of what goes behind closed doors, and not in a, not that I care about what people do in general, but it's just I've always wanted to do some kind of a project and call it just ordinary people, right?
Mhm.
Like ordinary, like what really sick fucks get up to behind closed doors. Like just today, I watched. I told Cody about this. Just today, I watched a documentary. Are you familiar with Ariel Castro?
I don't think so.
Okay, so this guy, real fucking piece of shit. He lived in Cleveland, Ohio. He was caught in 2013, but for 10 years, he kept three women locked up in his house. Right? I can send you the documentary I watched.
Okay.
Right? It also shows a failure of law enforcement, although the ominous voice doesn't present it that way, right? But it does show, like, I mean, and I had to point this out to my mother who sent it. I'm like you do realize that this is showing like the cops were made aware of this guy three times and he's got a history and they didn't do anything. But that's beside the point. But it's just like, you. I don't know if you're this way, but you ever walk down the street and you see somebody that's like really charming and you're like, I wonder what you're doing, right? I wonder if you've got like if you're making a snuff film. I wonder if you're watching like child porn in your house and you're like making that. You ever wonder that? Because it's
Well,
always the really, it's always like the people, and people are like, well, oh, he was so nice, I would never have suspected it. Of course, that's why they get away with it.
right,
You
right.
think he walks around with a billboard that says, I keep women, locked in my basement. Are you fucking stupid? Of course he's going to present himself. I mean, that's why he's getting away with it.
Hmm. Well, you look
So,
at Gus Fring in Breaking Bad. I mean, he was just, I mean, he's
yeah,
giving money to the police. He's doing all these charitable things. He's doing a stand up member of the community, all
he's
that
got
stuff.
that chicken business. He's got that chicken
Yeah,
business, and he looks like a very well
exactly.
respected guy. And
Mm.
here he's one of the big time meth
Yes.
dealers. Um, yeah, yeah.
But I'm
Um,
interested in the backstage view of like different, industries and, individual people too. But like, I like movies that like about Hollywood. Like, I like movies kind of about the backstage view of Hollywood. At some point, maybe someday, I'd like to write a story or a screenplay, maybe about the backstage of academe, to a certain extent. I'm just interested in stuff like that, like the backstage view um, of things. So I think you get some of that in Poser.
Yeah, that's important because like it never is what they tell you is never how they sell you on something
Exactly. How
is
they
never
sell
how it
it.
really is. It's never how it really is. How they sell you on a music career is not how it is. They don't tell you, if you go into music and you make it big, they don't tell you the fact that um, you're going to that the industry is going to be making 99% of the money and you're going to be making little, that you're going to have to front most of the cost of tours while the big executives take almost all of it. They're not going to tell you that they're going to try to sucker you into a 360 deal where everything you do, they get a piece of. And so, meanwhile, you might be a number one star, and you ask, well, gosh, why are you touring so much? It's because you're making almost nothing. Um,
Wow.
or in academia, don't get me started on that. I have my bones to pick that I'm not going to pick here, just because I rely on it right now. So I'll just leave that for a different day. Or in Hollywood too, like just how sleazy and Machiavellian it is, right?
Mhm.
That's why it's for me. I don't mean to get on. I don't mean to be foghorn leghorn here, but that's why it's so grotesque when like you have these like award shows and then you get these celebrities that get up and virtue signal and be like, we got to do something about the planet, and it's like, Yeah, weren't you at Epstein's Island and like, don't you fucking like suck up to people who are like, aren't you sexually assaulting people and you're gonna get up and fucking lecture the public? Um,
Right.
so yeah, um,
Yeah, movies like, I don't know if you remember The Player that came out years ago.
no,
Um,
no,
I think, oh gosh, I know the guy. Robert Altman directed it, and it was based on a novel. I think the novel was by I want to say Michael Tolan, but it has that. It had a lot of humor, but it was really dark too. And the way it ended, it was a Hollywood ending, but there's a twist on what that means, a Hollywood ending. But I remember that was a good backstage, and then things like The Bad and the Beautiful, I think was one, like a Hollywood noir. I think there's a whole genre called Hollywood noir, which is kind of about the world of Hollywood, behind the camera, which I think is really interesting. Sunset Boulevard's one of my very, very favorite, movies like that. And then later on, that was kind of the early one of stuff like that. And then later on, you had things like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane and stuff like that. But I think that would be fun to explore, just like Hollywood noir, like Hollywood in the mirror or something like that, Hollywood looking at itself. So I'm interested in
yeah,
stuff.
and like I remember when I grew up, like I grew up on like uh many things, but one of the things that I grew up on was Alfred Hitchcock movies,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Rear Window, loved it.
Yeah.
What is it? South by South? No, North by
North by
Northwest.
Northwest.
North by Northwest.
Yes. That's a good one.
Whole, birds and all of that. But then you realize what a fucking creep Alfred Hitchcock was. Like in that scene in Birds, like. See, like Alfred Hitchcock, and this came out later, so I'm not even telling stories out of school here. Like this is public knowledge. Like, if he would cast a woman, like he would, like he wanted a blowjob. He wanted sex, and if they wouldn't give it, he would. So, like the woman in Birds, for example, in that famous scene where the birds are surrounding the telephone thing, like she was fucking terrified. He did that on purpose because she wouldn't give in to his sexual advances. Or like he insisted on in the movie Psycho, that famous scene with the stabbing, like he insisted on her being nude, even though there was no fucking reason for her to be nude because it's all silhouette. He was just a fucking creep. You look at him and you're like, nobody wants to fuck this guy. Like, he's fucking disgusting. Like,
I feel
it should
like
be a
there's
crime
been a
to fuck
behind the
this guy.
scenes movie made maybe about some of his movies. It's been a long time
Yeah.
though. I can't remember what I haven't read
Anthony
the backstage
Anthony
stuff.
Hopkins played Alfred Hitchcock in a movie,
Okay, maybe that's the one I'm thinking of.
and that was about kind of reveals some of the creepiness behind the movie, how he made Psycho, and it goes into detail about that. I mean, certainly he's not the only one, but man, it is like, yeah, for a while I thought it'd be cool to make movies, and I'm just like, you know what, that's a little bit too sleazy for me. I just don't want to. Well, I don't want to live in
It's really
California.
hard. I mean, I made a short film several years ago, and it was like a little noir. It was probably one of my only. I've written some feature scripts, but it was probably like my only short screenplay, and I was in it, and it was. I was in it, and I directed it, and it was just. I can see how a lot of people want to make movies because when it's going well, it can be a lot of fun, but it's also one of the hardest things. And we were outside a lot. I mean, we were kind of out in the open, and I can see why people want to control as much of the set in the background because things kept happening that it just took us forever. Which I mean, but it gives you if you ever try to make a film, whether it's a 5-minute film, or a long film or whatever. Mine was about 20 minutes, but it gives you a whole new appreciation for all the
Yeah.
things that go into making a film.
Oh yeah.
It took me a long time to rest up from the exertion of it. But we had, people we knew, and there were some people. We had a great person who did lighting and sound. We had some, and a professional actor played one of the parts. And we had a great group, but it's still is such hard work. But then again, like if you're a powerful director, I mean, if you can control like the sets and it just like, I guess you're like a general or something controlling, that's controlling all the stuff that goes on a film set. It's pretty wild. Mine was tiny.
So you know more about film than I do. So sorry, Cody, for monopolizing the time. This will be my last. I'll ping pong it to you after this, so that you can ask some stuff. But I don't really know a whole lot of the extended details behind the whole Alec Baldwin situation. But I never had sympathy for that guy, right? And for the simple reason of, like, there should have never been live ammunition on the set at all. Like, for any reason, there was no reason, I mean, I'm not in film, but when I thought about it, I was thought to myself, well, how would here's what I thought. Tell me if my thinking is correct. If I was making a movie where it would have guns, which it probably would, given the stuff that it would be a situation where, like, in an ideal world, I would hire somebody that was like, I would get all my guns from like a reputable person who would be on the set, and only he or she would be allowed to touch them, right? When it came time to use the guns, that person would hand the actor the gun with the blank, and then it would come right back to that person, so that there would be no. But I think it came out that, like, Alec Baldwin was allowing his people to, like, during off time to, like, just shoot guns, like, just shoot guns, I think, or something like that. And I'm like, dude, those guns should be completely clean, right? Just for pure safety. And so when people got killed on there, and people were like, well, I have sympathy for Alec Baldwin. The first question I had was, why? There should have no live ammunition should have ever been within 100 feet of that fucking set, like, ever. Like, if I was a director on there and I saw people shooting, those guns wouldn't have been used, just because I don't want to shoot somebody. So maybe I'm being overly harsh. I don't know. What's your take? Do you have any sympathy for him?
I don't know. Well, I mean, I haven't read an awful lot about that. I think you're absolutely right, though. It sounds like you would be very responsible running a set where there are guns, though, because there should be one person, one reputable, knowledgeable person who handles all the prop guns and oversees all that. I don't know why they wouldn't have that. Was he the director? Was he in the film? I don't know much about the film. He was the set where that happened. What kind of film? I mean,
I think he was starring in it, and I think he was either the producer or the director, maybe both.
Okay, wow. So he would have had to say something.
Well, and the thing is, people are, I mean, I think that people who are more sympathetic are like, well, accidents happen. Yeah, but how? Because if you take the appropriate precautions, you take completely, okay, first of all, why would you even need real guns in this day and age? But suppose you wanted to make it real. I think a lot of these people that get a fetish are like, we're going to make it real, we're going to have to use real guns. And I think they get like this, like, fine, you have to use, it's like a gun boner, right? These are like ammo sexuals or something like that, right? Where fine, you want to do that, then that's why you have an expert. You have, like I said, who only that person is allowed. You have strict protocols. That person handles the guns. These guns have never been loaded with real ammunition. And only that person, they hand it to the actors or actresses. They do the scene. When they're done, they give it right back to that person. They nobody else touches it for any reason except the expert, right?
Right.
And there's no ammunition on set, ever. I can't see. I can't for the life of me think why there would need to be a reason for there to be actual live ammunition on the set. I mean,
I can't either. With all the props, I'm sure very realistic props that they would have and all the stuff, and they can do with special effects, they can amplify sound and things like that without needing the weapon to make, the prop weapon to make that kind of sound. They can do a lot of that in, I guess, post-production or with the sound. So that's what they did with Bonnie and Clyde. I don't know if you've seen the 60, I think it's 67 Bonnie and Clyde. That was one of the
Good
things
one.
they did with the gunfire was they did it with the sound person. And I think when they showed it at Royal Albert Hall at some point, the whoever was running the sound had turned it way down, and so it wouldn't pop. And I think Warren Beatty himself went up and said, "Hey, turn that back up. That's part of the whole effect of this is that we went to a lot of extra effort to make the gun sounds extra loud." But you can do that kind of thing, without needing the actual ammo and firearms.
One thing that was funny. Sorry, Cody. One thing that was this is my final observation, and then I'll ping. So sorry. But it just reminded me. Speaking of older films, the Little Rascals, the original Little Rascals.
Yes.
That guy, the guy who was I think he was a creator. He was so he had such
Hal Roach, maybe.
Yeah, Roach.
Uh-huh.
He was so committed, right? He got his films translated. I think he got his films into, I think it's German, French, maybe Spanish. But here's the thing, the Little Rascals didn't know Spanish, French, or German, and they didn't have any fancy. Here's what he did. He would shoot the episodes, and then he would go back and have cards with the lines and go through tediously and have the kids read the lines again in the language.
I had never heard that.
Shoot it again. Shoot the whole fucking thing again in, let's say, French. Shoot the whole fucking thing again in German. And it's like, damn, bro.
That's interesting. I love the Little Rascals. I've never heard that. That's wild. I'm glad to find out about that.
Yeah, I mean, I looked up Hal Roach and I'm like, damn, bro, you have some.
Wow.
And by all accounts, he treated the kids well, right? But it was just on his end, he would just, like I said, he'd have the line, he'd have a memory, read the line, cut. Okay, we got that line, that German line done. Okay, now this line, just read this, fuck, I mean, but okay, anyway, I've talked long enough. Cody, you hopefully have questions. I don't want to dominate, so Cody, let her rip, bro.
Oh yeah, finally, yeah. So yeah, well, actually, one of the questions I want to ask is the question I like to ask when I talk to another writer is, what is your sort of routine if you have one? So you write every day, write in the mornings, that sort of thing.
Well, I've been doing some painting in the last couple of weeks, just since I got out of school, and then I'm getting back into. I usually like to do writing stuff at night. I always have this ambition to get up really early and do writing. I know a lot of people do that, and I used to do that, but now it seems like I like to stay up late. And it seems like, when things get kind of quiet, I just turn on some jazz music and I'll read back over stuff. And then I've been thinking a lot about some things for the next Eucalyptus Lane novel after Poser. And I'm getting ready to really dive back into that. But I would say right now, my writing routine, and I know, going forward throughout the summer is going to be late nights, staying up late and working on it as long as I can. And then after a certain point, just go to bed, sleep in a little bit, but then, as much as I can throughout the day, if I can find other times, like in the afternoon, if I go on a walk to the park or something like that, take a scene maybe that I wanted to go back over, but then just kind of have everything on my computer at night and work on it as long as I can.
Okay. I know that some writers like to, or they don't like to read other novels while they're in the middle of a novel. Is that something you do also, or do you only read nonfiction?
I kind of do that. I think I like to do my reading maybe in between a lot of writing. I think I like to do my reading, and then work on the thing for a while, and then when I'm giving it a cool off, maybe between pass throughs editing, and then read some more stuff, read another novel or another book of short stories or something like that. Okay. I think I'm getting back into the reading habit, though. I'm really enjoying it. I'm looking forward to reading, some of your books and some more from Outcast Press, with Sebastian's and Slut Vomit and everything too. And I do highly recommend Recalcitrant Stuff of Life and Filth It Shall Be Found. I think I've got reviews of those in my blog, but
You do.
I'm going through some reading stuff, and now I'm getting ready to kind of dive headlong back into the writing every day, because I have been kind of intermittent lately, but I'm getting ready to get back on a more firm schedule with that for sure.
Is like the writing process something that sort of does it energize you at all, or does it sort of strain you?
It does when I'm really, yeah. I mean, it puts me in a good mood when I feel like I'm getting lots of writing done. I get in a cranky mood when I feel like I'm not getting lots of writing done. And I can tell, I mean, I had kind of, taken a little break, but I'm ready. And my mind, it's like, even if I'm not sitting at the desk writing or sitting at the computer lately, it's just been on my mind. And I'm thinking of scenes that, I kind of want to revise, for different reasons and things like that. And thinking of some scenes going forward that'll connect up. So it's really been on my mind. And now I need to just get all that down on some pages and get out my outline. I don't always work from an outline, but with this I did. And I'm going to go back and, kind of stare at that for a while and work on that too. And then get really back into the thick of it. I'm looking forward to it because it does energize me.
Good.
So
For me, I guess it sort of does, but I don't know. I'm one of those people that I don't really like writing
Okay.
at all, really.
Well, it does. I mean, it can take a lot out of you too. So, I mean, it's kind of. Sorry, that was my Chihuahua. But it can take a lot out of you too. So, I mean, I remember years ago when I was at LSU, I was helping. Well, I worked at the bookstore, and then I was assistant to the director of the creative writing program. And we had Steve Soderbergh. Y'all know who he is? Sex, Lies, and Videotape, and some.
Mm-hmm.
He had gone to school there, and he came back to give a speech. And I remember one of the questions at the Q&A, somebody said, "Do you like writing?" And he said, "I don't like to write. I like having written." And I know just what he means.
Yep.
It's like writing is hard, but having written, you generally feel better having written than not having written, even if writing is hard. So it's kind of I don't know if that's a paradox or a conundrum, but
No, it makes sense. Like, I mean, how do I put this? I think I'm of two minds. How do I put this? I don't like. A lot of people are different. A lot of people have the opposite view. Is they love writing and they hate revision. I'm the opposite. The actual getting the raw material down, I hate that. But once I've got all of it down and it's ready to be sort of shaped, then I enjoy it, because then I can think, then I can sort of sit back and say, all right, I've got the skeletal structure here.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's my way of writing, is I get the skeletal structure and then I add and subtract meat from the bones and I sculpt as I feel. I'm like, okay, and it's multiple different levels, but I enjoy that. Once I've got the story there, then I'm like, all right, how can I go and make it better? And then sort of the final two passes is, all right, how can I try to make each sentence really sing? Because I think we've all run into those. I mean, I take Kurt Vonnegut's advice very seriously, which is never waste the reader's time. And I always have that in mind when I write, which is, people might complain, oh, you don't add a lot of description, you don't add a lot of this. It's because, well, one, I don't want to insult the reader, right? I don't need to spend 20 pages describing a scene, right? Fuck that. That's boring as fuck. As much as I like Thomas Ligotti's short fiction, sometimes he goes into too much detail, and it's like, bro, just get to the fine. Okay, I get it. So it's like, add something short. I think for me, there are certain things that I write that I actually really enjoy that energizes me. So if I'm writing cosmic horror, I'm on a cosmic horror kick right now. I fucking enjoy it because it's like a real, how do I say it, like a real challenge of being like, how can I craft a piece that is so skull crushing, that's really fun, right? If I'm writing that, or if I'm writing like my character arc, the Hucklebear, the Hucklebear, which is a very violent kind of, that's really fun to write. When it's something that's more personal, like it's utterly draining. So if I'm writing like a transgressive fiction piece, a more literary piece, where I'm tapping into the kind of the visceral emotions, it zaps me, right? It'll utterly, because you're drawing from your traumas, right? When I'm writing cosmic horror, I'm not really drawing from my traumas. When I'm writing actually, in writing the Hucklebear character arc, I am tapping into a kind of primal rage where, because since it's such a violent, very violent character, I am kind of like, I kind of do feel that kind of that hatred that I've for different people in my life that have, I won't name them, but that have wronged me, and I'm kind of have that picture in my mind of like that lets me, it's satisfying. So, but it certainly is, I would say in my mind, more satisfying to have a piece that you're mostly satisfied with. I mean, I don't think anybody is really satisfied. It's kind of that old cliche, you never finish a piece, you just abandon it. But I think once you think, this is as good as I can make it, I'm sure it could be made better, but this is as good as I can make it, time to send it out. That's satisfying for me. I think eventually I'll return to writing more transgressive fiction, but for right now, it gets to a point where like you stare into the abyss, like Nietzsche said, and it stares back and it kind of changes you. And people have, given me praise for my piece in Phil's, with which I'm proud of that piece, but I tapped into a lot of traumas in that one, and you got to be in the right mindset, where you have to be in the right mindset, and you have to sort of warn people like you're going to be a miserable prick for a while, like, because you're going to be, it's draining. And for my poetry book, right, especially too, but that laid me out for a bit, because that's all laying out. So that's my long and protracted way of saying, sometimes it can be fun, sometimes it can be extremely draining, just because you're just drawing from experiences. This is why I don't shit on people who write like, certain, science fiction or fantasy or whatever. It's like, they probably have a better quality of life. They probably have a better quality of life than people like me or Cody. Power to them, It's not what I write usually, but hey, you know what? If they can find a way to write and not have it make them an insufferable,
Yeah.
whatever. All right, sorry, that was my long. Yeah, go on, Cody.
I was going to say, I do imagine that they're probably more optimistic, because if you're writing about the future, then you are already more optimistic than I am.
Yeah, I don't think I'm open to reading other genres. I haven't read a lot of science fiction. I don't know if it counts as science fiction or not, but The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I've read that. I mean, I haven't read an awful lot, but I'm a bit of a fan of the old Star Trek. The
Oh
Gene
yeah,
Coons TV. I like that, and I think that incorporates lots of different kind of present day problems in it. I think it's interesting how he has, was it ethos, pathos, and logos? How Spock, Bones, and Captain Kirk kind of represent those three things. Just the dynamics of that, I think, is really interesting. And so I do like to, you can probably tell I like retro movies. I like a lot of new stuff too, but I like retro movies and retro TV shows. There's some references in Poser. I have some classic film fans, and stuff like that.
good.
So yeah, but I do. I watch a lot of the classic movie channel and I watch a lot of retro TV. There's some good writing that stands up on some of those. It's really interesting.
I like the old reruns of Lost in Space. Pretty good, actually.
Yeah, yes. I watch. The old black and white ones have been on lately, so I've been watching some of those. And I mean, I'm a long time, which probably a lot of people, but a long time fan of the Andy Griffith Show, and stuff like that. Sebastian might know I'm a big fan of the old Perry Mason Show, stuff like that. So I like a lot of and Peter Gunn, some of the TV noir, from the 50s and 60s. I still look back at all the time.
See, Perry Mason for you must be like a guilty pleasure because it's so divorced from how the legal system actually works. Like some guy gets up and he confesses. That's got to be a guilty pleasure, right? Because it's so divorced from reality.
I don't know. I've gotten so into watching it since. I already liked it, and I don't know. I think once again that dynamic of the main characters, Perry, Paul Drake, and Della, I think that's another one of the things I like because, if there's an episode where they're not all three there, it's like it's not, oh, this is kind of an atypical Perry Mason. Like this past week, I haven't been watching that much. They've had a lot of guest stars, like Perry would maybe make a 5-minute appearance or something like that. And it's like, this isn't, part of it. I mean, I guess I like the actors in it. And I like some of the, based on those, I guess, they're noir, I guess, kind of novels, but then they always had kind of a Pulp Fiction cover to them. The old Earl Stanley Gardner books they're based on were kind of, kind of sexy, kind of wild covers and stuff. But some of the motifs and conventions of noir that show up just across that whole series, the older ones more than the newer, the later ones, I guess, right before the original show ended. I know there's a new Perry Mason. I've seen a few of those. But I like the original, like the 1950s that just capture a lot of the look and mood of noir, and like LA in the 50s and 60s and stuff like that. There are a lot of outdoor shots. I just kind of, I think, enjoy the mood of it. I like black and white movies and TV, so I think I just like it. Maybe I find it comforting in some way. I don't know. I just enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got their everybody's got their guilty, whatever. One thing, this is great. Cody knows this. I've been getting into, I never watched the show when it was on, and I still won't because it's too nauseating, but the clips are enough, which is what I would call like Democrat pornography, which is the West Wing. I'm so entrenched in how nonsensical, I think it was, I listened to a podcast with Chapo Trap House, and he said that Aaron Sorkin did more damage to the political imagination than D.W. Griffith.
Wow. I have to admit, I've never seen The West Wing.
You're not missing anything. Okay, let me give you the rundown of it, right? So like this is
I know there's a President Bartlett.
Yes, who's a Nobel Prize winning economist, right? I'll let that sink in here. Okay. It's because that's who America wants to fucking elect, right? They would love nothing more than to elect an intellectual, Americans really love intellectuals. Okay. But like every decision is based upon like every decision or like piece of legislation is based upon like winning an argument. Like this is how Aaron Sorkin thinks or wants politics to work. Yeah. Like and like people who win an argument are then like immediately rewarded, right? Which is not how it works. It's just not how politics works, right? And like looking at like the Obama administration, you can see like a nice like if you watch it now, which I've been watching clips, it's like, wow, now I see why people in the Obama administration were living out like West Wing like fantasies of thinking. And then there's all these like soaring speeches that are given by Bartlett that are just, and also there's a fair amount of, I would say, sexism because like all the women are kind of dumb, right? Like, oh, they're these highly educated women, but then they like sit in wet paint. And then like the men have to come in and like chastise them for doing that. Clips, just watch clips and you'll get a real glimpse into the strange world of how Aaron Sorkin imagines what he would like politics to be like. A funny story too is that there are several episodes that are like where there's like anti-drug messages, which is hilarious because while he was writing the script, he was doing a lot of coke. So there's an added level of like hilarious hypocrisy of like he was writing those scenes while he was fucking loaded.
Wow.
But no, I've been getting into that. Like I've been getting into it's like you want to understand why like the like 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 how fucked up like liberals and like the Democratic establishment is and why they're so weird. The West Wing, like look at the West Wing and you'll see just how again it's pure fantasy. It's pure like liberal. It's like just pure fantasy. I'm trying to think what would be like a good corollary for like how Republicans conceptualize like what movie or what piece of art they would point to.
Probably Top Gun.
Yeah, Top Gun, which is like military propaganda. Aren't they making a new one? They're making a new fucking why?
That just came out recently.
Well, one of my favorite movies is Network, and I know Aaron Sorkin wrote The Social Network, and I remember I think he made mention in his speech. I think he won Best Screenplay for Social Network, and I think he mentioned that Network, the original Network, he was glad it shared, like it had something of the name in it, and he was a big fan of that movie. But I like Network, from 1976, I think. It got beaten out for Best Picture by Rocky, I think, that year. Patty Chayefsky wrote it, and oh gosh.
Network was the one. That was in the 70s with the guy who takes over the film.
Mad as hell. Yeah, that's the one. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. Huh?
Love that movie. Yeah, that movie's better than my
favorite movies. And I'm a fan like William Holden once again. From Sunset Boulevard. It's an older William Holden in Network, but and Faye Dunaway. I had mentioned Bonnie and Clyde before, but she's in it, and she might have gotten an Oscar for that one. I'm not sure, but that's one of my favorite movies too. And it's, I don't know, I still, people still reference that as how prescient it was, and things that they thought were over the top then, which I think Patty Chayefsky was like, if it keeps going this way, this is how it's going to be. I think it's just gone that far and beyond, and what he thought about a lot of things, about the media, and stuff like that. But But that's some of the movies I've mentioned while we've been talking are some of my favorite ones. And I used to teach a art and craft of film course, and those are some of the ones that I enjoyed watching with students and discussing and debating things about them. So,
Yeah.
but I still, the I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore thing. It's like, wow, now more than ever. And so
Yeah.
I need to go back and revisit that movie again, as many times as I've seen it. I always see something new each time I watch it.
Yeah, the 70s were great for, like, that was, in my opinion, one of like the golden age. I mean, that brought us Deliverance, Taxi
Yeah.
Driver, Deer Hunter.
And even some of the TV shows where they're talking about the inflation. I mean, we're back to talking about gas lines and inflation and all those things that were going on in the 70s. It's just unreal. So, I mean, it's
Yeah, I think that this
interesting
is
to
what
revisit those things.
I think what depresses me, and Cody, I bet this depresses you too, is I don't want to speak for you, but you can either confirm, is not that there are problems, but like the utter ineptitude of like dealing with them in any kind of effective manner, that it's like fucking depressing. Where there are like clear solutions, right? Like clear, obvious solutions, and yet they still happen because nobody will take those clear solutions. That it's just, you almost just sit back and it's like, fuck it, I don't care anymore, because like I think the breaking point for me was like the last school shooting, right? Like for me, that was the breaking point where it's like, I fucking give up. Like the human species is done, right? It's like we've known, like from 1999, which is when Columbine happened, and we've just had more and more and more. We know what works, we know what doesn't work, and yet we're still banging on about the same solution. So it's like it's predictive, right? So immediately after the school shooting, I said, "What are we?" Immediately, I predicted. I told my mom, "I go, Mom, here's what's going to happen. You're going to get dumb fucks talking about doors, talking about, oh, only have one, put more metal detectors in. Motherfucker, they already have that, right? They're gonna then they're gonna talk about putting more cops in schools. And what do? You had dumb fucks like Ted Cruz thinking that doors were the fucking issue. No, you asshole. It's people. It's 18-year-olds who are able to get semi-automatics. You shit. More cops in schools. That causes, that doesn't, so it's like, all right, we're not going to do anything, we're just going to not do anything again. So it's like every day there's like almost every day there's like a new school shooting, nothing's happening. So at a certain point, and same with like the stuff you talk about too, with like again, we know what the solutions are. As a species, we've collectively decided not to listen to people who know things. Instead, we're going to give into magical thinking and be like, well, I'll pray for them. Pray on your own fucking time. Do something actually worthwhile. That's, sorry to get on my high horse there, but.
Oh, you're 100% correct. I mean, I think breeding apathy is part of the program too.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, I'm guilty of falling into that as well, but I try not to. But yeah, I mean, it's not just the fact that they go after solutions that they know don't work. They go after solutions they know that will hurt people. Because just with the inflation thing, the Fed chairman this week, I think it was, said the problem is wages are too high, so they want to drive down wages again to fight inflation. That's just not.
No, that's not the issue. Yeah,
100% class war. You don't want to refer to it as a class war, but it's 100% what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if, I mean, I don't necessarily know if apathy is the right word for like what I feel. It's just after you try like almost everything, right? And you know what works and people don't do it. It's like I went back and I watched recently back when there was Parkland, right? The Parkland people, they were giving it to Marco Rubio hard. They even were giving it to the fucking this NRA, that Dana Loesch, that fucking shill for the fucking NRA. And they were giving it to these people, right? And it's like they haven't said no fucking shame. It's like these people, it's like nothing's gonna change because these people are incapable of, like, for instance, I watched a thing, and this is like 4 years ago, when when they had Marco Rubio right there, and they asked him, and one of the Parkland survivors, right, asked Marco Rubio a yes or no question, which is, do you vow not to take NRA money? Yes or no? And he was like, well, people who do this buy into.
That's gonna be hard to get a yes or no. I know.
Stop. And then what they should have done is interrupted and said, nothing about buying into this is a fucking yes or no. Either you're going to take money or you're not. None of this. Well, people who donate, they buy into my campaign and blah blah blah. Stop.
They won't say yes or no.
Focus. Yes or no. Are you going to take it or are you not going to take it? That's what a lot of these people, where there's a yes or no, where a lot of people, they need to just interrupt them, right? The minute that they say anything besides a yes or no, for a yes or no question, no, are you going to take a yes or no? And press them on that, right? And if they have to keep them there for 5 fucking hours, get a yes or no out of them. You going to take it? No, you're not. Good. Now, if we find out you did take it, we're going to fucking make sure that everybody knows you took NRA money, you know? But just the fact is, like, you people have no fucking shame. And after 25 years of, let's just to go on this issue, 25 years of, we know what causes school shootings. We know the type of person. Psychologists have studied this. And now they're talking about, people are celebrating, like, well, we're going to lift, now we're going to make it so that, people are celebrating this on social media. In the House, they're going to say, now you have to be 21 to buy. It's like, yeah, 21-year-olds are still fucking stupid. You understand that. At 21, I was a fucking moron.
Right.
They shouldn't be allowed to have it. I mean, I'm not anti-gun. I'm really not. But can we be honest here? There's no good reason why a civilian needs to be able to have a semi-automatic anything. No reason that I can think of, unless you're in a sportsman paradise.
Yeah, I'm not anti-gun either, but I'm just, like you, I'm just at that point where I'm sorry, but nobody can have it. I'm sorry. We got to that point where, even though I'm, you can have a gun if you want to, I don't care, but we got to the point where we can't allow anybody to have them because it's just too easy to get them.
Well, and like people who say like gun control doesn't work, and I'm not even saying that we have to be draconian like some places do, but it does. I'm sorry that the facts get in the way of whatever, but like, I think it was 1995, Australia had a massive shooting. So what did Australia do? Wholesale ban on guns. They haven't had a major shooting, I think maybe one since then. I think it was like one, maybe two since 1995. Now, you can agree with a wholesale ban on whatever, but you can't argue with the facts, with the empirical data of 1995 massive shooting. They took away all the guns, and guess what? There hasn't been one since. So for people that say, well, gun control doesn't work, look at Australia, you asshole. Look at over in the UK, where, for all my faults with how UK does stuff, even their cops over there, to the best of my knowledge, don't have guns. They don't have that problem. Sorry, it works.
I don't know if you've seen the movie Bowling for Columbine. Michael Moore.
Yeah.
I know he's a lightning rod. He's controversial and everything, but they go in that movie. He goes to Canada. He's looking at gun violence in America, and he goes to Canada. And in Canada, they have so many guns. But there's a quote by one guy I always think about, but he says, well, if more guns made a country safer, then America would be the safest country, but it doesn't. It's the opposite. Right. But it raises some interesting questions, but it never really comes to an answer. But they just had I think it was last year or two was the 20th anniversary of that movie. And I've watched that movie many, many times and watched it with a lot of classes and people discuss things in it. But there's so much that it's like, and I've seen interviews with him where he talked about, well, as a filmmaker, you want to hope that the film that you make will make a difference, on a topic like this. We thought, well, that's as bad as it'll get, it will, let's try to make it better. But it's like, it's just gotten so much worse. So many more shootings, school shootings, and nothing being done. I think it's just, I don't know. I mean, people are fired up on one side, but then it's like, but does it just get, like, talking about apathy, does it just get numbing? But it's like, but like you said, there's solutions there, and it's beyond frustrating that nothing's being done. It's unbelievable. It really is.
And I think it's because America is so entrenched in the good guy with a gun fantasy.
Well, that's
It's complete
talks about
fiction.
America specifically, and its use of guns. But it's like, you think about America, well, the Wild Wild West, and so many guns. But if you think about, like, even in the Old West, there were towns that you had to leave your gun at the city limit. I mean, can you imagine the hue and cry now if you tried to make somebody leave their gun anywhere? Just about, like, well, they're trying to make it, where you can just, instead of going the other way, well, no, let's extend and expand the places you can bring guns. So it's just, on the one hand, no, but then on the other hand, yeah, well, let's make it where we do have guns, and so it's like, I don't know, it's just. It's mind-boggling, and it is frustrating, and I think that can make people just go, like Cody said, like, you don't want to shut down. You try to avoid getting into apathy, but it's just beyond comprehension. Some of the things and the way it's being handled and not handled, and like you said, with Marco Rubio's response, like, just, well, obfuscate, kind of thing. And it's just, it's unreal. It's unreal, and yet it's all too real.
I mean, I think it's a matter of, it's like, I don't even know if I would call it apathy, that I don't care. It's just.
Well, it's just, you don't know
who's the options have been exhausted.
Yeah, that's a good word. It's exhausting, and it's just.
No, not exhausting. It's the options have been exhausted. Like, how many times can you tell people the same thing and it not resonate? You know what I'm saying? So it's not apathy. It's just,
or it's
I don't know how else to.
Well, and it's just, I don't know, would you say lack of will to take action among lawmakers, or some people trying to do something, but it's just, like you said, it's just been the same for so long, and it's like, well, let's hope it, but then it keeps happening again. And like you said, well, here are some solutions to try, but it's just, I mean, this is kind of like in the movie that I was talking about, Bowling for Columbine. Michael Moore's interviewing this man whose son was killed during the Columbine shootings. And he's saying, well, people look at American culture and say, well, it's our culture is so very different from other places. But then he says, well, look at, other countries have violent video games. They have, violent films, all these things. And he also makes a point. He says they, like us, don't have prayer in schools, but then he says, and yet we have this level of gun violence. And they just he and Michael Moore just kind of look at each other and go, what is it? What is it? What is it? And they both are just like, what is it about America? And that's why that movie, it's a great film in so many ways. And yet it's kind of frustrating because he examines lots of causes, and he really looks closely at the NRA, and how they would go to places right after one of these, terrible shootings. But then it never really comes to an answer. But it's that thing. What is it? Is it, like you said, well, the solutions have been exhausted, but have enough been implemented to be exhausted? Or is it just, I don't know. Is it lack of will? Is it
Well, I mean, I think it's several things. I think there's three things at stake.
economic? Mhm.
Well, three things. This is my hypothesis. It's one, American fantasy, which is good guy with a gun fantasy.
There is an
Pure
American
fantasy.
love affair with guns.
Mhm.
There
Well,
is.
but not just a love affair with guns, the love affair with a particular fantasy, which is if only there was a good guy with a gun that can stop somebody. But the fact is that doesn't happen. When the natural reaction, okay, unless you live in a really, okay, here's where the good guy with a gun it becomes not a fantasy. If you live in a ghetto area, and this is where I'm not against guns, this is where I'm all for guns, is like if you live in a very rough area, like on any given day, I will hear gunshots outside, right? Like I'm not trying to, I mean, this isn't to make people feel sorry for me. I'm just saying, like on any given day, I might hear gunshots outside. When I step out of my house, right? Every time I step out, now I don't own guns, but I have to be prepared. Just be on alert because I don't know if somebody's going to be walking down, going to see me and want to get fresh, right? Luckily, I haven't had to do this for quite a while, but I got to be prepared, and I have a plan in place, right? Which is like I step out my house, I survey the situation. If I see somebody that might, whatever, I got to be prepared with my right hand to crack them in the nose in case something gets fresh. Now, in those situations, you're in that state of alert. Then a good guy with a gun would come in handy because they're marinating in this kind of normalcy of guns. But for the average jack off, right, who has this gun fantasy, they don't walk down the street. Okay, when you walk down the street, most people walk down the street, they pass a convenience store, they pass a bank. They're on their list of things that they expect. What makes their top 100 is probably not hearing gunfire. So suppose you did have a person that's strapping, that's like, I'm going to be I'm going to be a good guy with a gun. Now, most of the time, they're never going to need to use that. But when they do, all of a sudden, what's the natural reaction if all of a sudden you were to hear gunfire in a place you don't expect? You freeze. You freeze. You're like you're discombobulated, and you get scared. Sorry, you get scared. It's a scary fucking thing. So that's why the good guy with a gun theory is a pure fantasy. We've seen, for instance, and Cody, what's the one school shooting where a cop was right outside the school, heard the shots, refused to go in?
Uvalde?
No. That was one where for 40, no. Uvalde was one where for 40 minutes the cops stayed outside wondering what to do while they were tasering parents trying to go in to rescue kids, because that's what's really important. That instead of going in to stop a school shooter, we got to make sure we tase parents that want to go in and save them. That's a whole other rant.
Parkland, maybe I think you're talking about.
Yeah, where there was, and they sued the officer, and I actually had sympathy for the officer because what that showed was a natural reaction to when you hear gunfire, which is freeze, get terrified. So fuck the good guy fantasy. That's a good guy with a gun fantasy. That's just pure American magical thinking. There's that.
Unless you have extensive training, you're not going to be very effective in those situations.
No. The second one is I think that there's also a mixed message. We give Americans mixed messages, right? In that we say, well, it's okay for the president, for example, to bomb countries, and it's okay for these people to commit violence. So, but not us, right? So this is the one good thing. I mean, the Bowling for Columbine documentary has been accused of misrepresentation. I'm not going to get into whether that's true, but the really cool thing was when Michael Moore interviewed Marilyn Manson. And Manson said, isn't it interesting that on the day of the Columbine shooting, Bill Clinton did a bombing campaign on, I believe, Bosnia. It was the largest bombing campaign of,
Yeah.
I think, Bosnia or Kosovo, I forget which one.
Kosovo, I believe.
Isn't that a fascinating juxtaposition, right? It's okay for the president to go out and fucking kill people, but it's, you know, so it's like, I think it's also, it's a kind of a mixed message type thing, right? In that we get, well, we love violence at the political level when it's certain officials that we've arbitrarily designated to commit it. And so young people are given kind of this mixed message also. And also it's a failure of society. Again, like any kind of aberrant behavior cannot be placed on the individual solely. It can't, because people don't grow up in a vacuum. They are products of their environment, right? They are grown in a particular environment, right? You see people, you see mental illness, you see physical illness, you see, that's a symptom of a person's maladjusted way of their environment. In the same way that if you see a plant withering, you don't blame the plant. You don't say, oh, you piece of shit plant, you're not producing. You look, well, is it getting enough sunlight? Is the soil good? Mm-hmm. Sorry, the American soil is fucking poison. And not every rose has its thorn poison. Poison is fucking bad for you. American culture is bad for you. Mm-hmm. So that's why you get loneliness, isolation. Now, what's that going to produce? If you're a lonely guy, which America is very much isolates people from one another, right? Because another myth is we worship individualism, right? We're all about, it's the individual, right? We are all isolated, Ayn Randian, rugged individualists, right? We still give into that Ayn Rand fucking horse shit. Dare I say, she's done more damage to the political imagination and the economic imagination than just about anybody. So sorry, that was my long rant that I'll stop. So
yeah,
I'll be quiet and let you two talk. I've rambled long enough.
No, yeah, I agree with everything you said. I mean, couple all that with the fact that a lot of younger generations don't even believe they have a future worth having anymore, and it's a bad mix.
Yeah, maybe it's that thing. If you got nothing to lose, you got nothing to lose, you know, kind of thing. And it's, you know, a lot of young people may be looking at the future and just with the planet and the economy, all kinds of things that are happening, and just it looks bleak. But I don't know. It's frustrating. And yeah, I think about these things, and then I come back to why Michael Moore and that guy in the movie were going, what is it? What is it? Because it's like in my classes, you know, we talk about and debate a lot of these things, but come back to the what is it? And it's hard. Like, you know, you can talk about different things, but it's just, okay, well, then what's the best way forward? You know, it's just, I don't know. You would think that people in the country could come together on something, and it's unbelievable that we haven't enough to stop these tragedies from happening. It's you know, it's like you said, it's not maybe apathy, but it's just, I mean, it's frustrating. It's hard to come up with what's wrong with, and maybe once again to that movie, but maybe that's part of it. And I think in interviews, like in the last few years, Michael Moore has kind of come around to saying, he said, well, I used to, you know, I mean, because he starts out talking about being a member of the NRA when he was really young and winning one of their marksman awards, but then about what the NRA has become. But then there's that thing of, well, guns don't kill people, people kill people. And he said in like a interview, maybe from a last couple of years, he said, well, you know, I've come to to agreeing with that to a certain extent, but it's not necessarily just people kill people, but it's Americans kill people. Because he said, looking at other countries, even where they do have a lot of guns, and he talks about, he examines Canada really closely, but he's like, what is it about America? And like you said, you can look at the
Well,
good
I
guy
think he
with gun fantasy. People look
well,
at
I think he worships Canada a little bit too much, right? I
well,
think
I
he
know
thinks that
Canada,
it's
and I think Canada's problems have increased in the last few years since this movie came out. I think there's a lot more. Like if you were to go back and revisit that, there'd be a lot of things about Canada. But just using
it's
that,
still
as an
it's still
example.
white people up. It's still white people up there. I mean, ask the indigenous population how they're treated up there. It's not great. So that's where I take issue with Michael Moore. He wants to make Canada to be this kind of paradise. It's still white people up there. It's still, I mean, they may not be shooting one people, but the highest incarceration rate is still Aboriginal peoples up there. So that's where I take issue with Michael Moore, is his kind of romanticizing Canada.
Yeah.
Ask somebody
I
who
don't
wants to play.
romanticize Canada. I don't. I've heard some things about what more recent developments there with their politics and everything. So I don't romanticize them, but it's just I don't know. I guess looking at America comparison to any country, what's our deal with guns? I don't know how much. I haven't been out of the country in a while. I don't know how much people in other countries. Maybe I haven't been watching. I used to watch the news all the time, but like what are other people in other countries saying right now? I think it's they've for a long time wondered maybe what is the deal with America, but then they all have their own issues. But
Yeah.
now like it's just it seems like it's the big shoot. Things seem to happen every so often, and lately, yet again, it seems like there's just been such a tremendous amount of gun violence here in this country, and it just seems like things I'm hearing when I watch the news are so many of the same things from politicians on both sides, and it's just it's unreal.
I mean, I think for a lot of solutions, it would be less frustrating if, there were solutions that were tried that didn't work, and then you learn.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I think that that's what's demoralizing, is it's just
You have to try
trying.
them to learn them, and if you don't ever try them, like how do you know? But then it's like, well, no, that wouldn't. It's maybe things are dismissed. Some things have been tried. There are other like you said, other solutions. But it's people maybe dismiss them, and I don't know. Is part of that because of our polarized politics? Is that part of it, that even over things like that people can't come together? Maybe, I mean, did they used to? It seems like they did more than now, or not. So that's something you could debate too.
We've always been I mean, that's another myth. We've always been polarized, right? Always.
I mean,
America's
you
always
go
been
back to the
polarized.
Ayn Rand stuff, in the 1950s, the House Un-American Activities Committee, all those aspects of American society that seem to be, I don't know, did they go away and come back, or they've always been there? I think it's probably the
Always been there.
way. Okay.
Well, it just takes
So
on a new guise. It just
it
takes on.
takes
It's
on
like
new
that.
guys, new
I mean,
faces,
it's
new
like that old.
faces, old names. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay. Here would be a good example. Like, a really good book to read is by Michelle Alexander, The New Jim Crow, right? Where she shows.
Yeah, I've heard of that book.
It's a fantastic book. It's a fantastic book. And she argues very eloquently how, okay, well, here's the old form of Jim Crow, and now here's how mass incarceration is the new form of Jim Crow. So it's just it's like that old saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Like, and to be fair, there's really always been rampant. I don't think gun violence has gotten worse. It's just more publicized, right? For the same reason of, like, go back in time, ask Tupac how much gun violence there was in his neighborhoods. A lot. Ask a lot of the a lot of the rappers back in the 80s and 90s, how much gun violence there was. It was a lot. It's just it wasn't. Maybe it was just isolated, or it was.
Like mass
Well, it was sequestered in poor neighborhoods, and nobody cares about that.
Yeah, it was sequestered in poor neighborhoods that nobody cared about, and then people were always.
That's a good point.
Well, and then it was even stupider because then people would say, nobody ever talks about black on black crime. Why do black people? It's like because that's who they bump into. If you live in, if you're a black person living in a black neighborhood, it's just like white people. That's who they commit crimes against. Is this hard? Is this rocket science? Like, is this, you know?
Yeah. I mean, most white people are killed by other white people, but it'll be strange to hear the phrase "white on white crime."
That's reserved for Wall Street bankers and hedge fund managers. That's real. That's some real top quality white on white crime.
Oh, yeah.
But
Like
I don't know. I think Cody and I are far more pessimistic and cynical than you are.
There's plenty to be pessimistic and cynical about.
Yeah.
There really is.
Well, we're almost an hour and a half. I think. Did you have only an hour with us?
Yeah, you had only an hour with us, right?
Yeah, I think I said I could adapt. So.
Well, I know that you're busy, right? So I don't
Huh?
want to cut into. Well, I know that you're busy, so I don't want to cut into your time. So if you need to jet, we can sort of do a final plug and then call it.
Okay.
Yeah, we can wrap it up.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't really gotten any comments. Whatever. It's okay.
Well,
We haven't.
I enjoyed talking with you all, and now I'm going to be thinking about
sure?
all these things the rest of the day. I'm going on a probably about a 3-hour car trip, so I'll be thinking and talking about these things right on. So I appreciate y'all having me on the show.
Yeah,
oh no, it's been an honor having you on the show. Yeah, I mean, and just to emphasize to the audience listening, yeah, pick up Poser. Even if you're only it's a page turner, right? Like there's been people who reported to me, and I'm sure to you, that they've read it like in one sitting. They just sat down and they just couldn't stop. So if you're a romance reader, you're gonna get a different little spin. If you're a noir, you're gonna get a little bit different. If you're and it's worth mentioning that this is only the first book, and I think you have it planned for 3, right? There's a 3-book planned. Yeah. So next spring we're gonna have the next one come out. So it's gonna be one a year, and we'll take it from there. So yeah. So expect this to be. Oh yeah. So we got a thing from Jonathan. Good. He hopped on late. So good. Yeah. Thanks for jumping on. Now we know the comments are working. So yeah, thanks Jonathan for checking it out. Yeah, definitely listen to the.
Appreciate it.
Feel free, Jonathan, to fast forward through some of my more unhinged rants that I go on. But.
Well, I appreciate y'all having me on so much, and y'all giving me lots to think about. I appreciate the discussion, and thank you for letting me talk about Poser and for the thought provoking the thought provoking discussion that we've had. I really appreciate it, and thank you both.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Anytime you want to come on, just let us know.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to come on again, I mean, we'll have to have you. Yeah, we'll definitely have to have you come on. I mean, before the next book. What do you have the title of the next book?
I have an idea for a title. I'm still working on it. It'll be one of the. I mean, it is a Eucalyptus Lane novel. I'm thinking all my titles are going to be one-word titles.
Okay.
More on that anon, as my old Shakespeare teacher used to say. Because I'm kind of torn between a couple of different ones, and so I'm thinking on it, and I'll let you know.
Okay.
So what are you kind of spitballing? If you don't mind if you don't mind kind of spilling the beans a little bit, what do you, again, no guarantee, so anybody listening, this is not going to be the definite, but what are some possibilities you're floating around?
One I'm thinking about is Buster. And I don't know. I really haven't gotten too far in my thinking. And I think I have a title for the third one, but for the second one, I'm still torn. So give me a little more time on that one. I
It
did
might
think,
develop organically. It might develop organically, right? Because
yeah,
like Poser really represents. I mean, just if I may, Poser is really good because it tells you kind of what's in the book, and like
mhm.
a lot of these people are, for lack of a better word, they're posers, right?
Yeah.
They're leading double lives. They're fake in a way.
Well, just between us, I'll give you a thought, and for one, no, and yeah, it could, some of the Southern Gothic element comes out a little bit more in the second one. We go back to Ambrose's hometown. I don't mean to
Oh,
be a
good.
spoiler, but we do. But we meet the parents of some of the main characters, or at least some of the parents, and I mean, you know, cracker had come to mind. I don't know, and then but another word, just like to give it you know that to give it a another, like a double on, is this a double entendre, another layer of meaning, since it's set in Silicon Valley. You know, it's set around Palo Alto and San Francisco. It's come to my attention. I don't know if I saw, where did I see this, but anyway, where hackers, you know, people that do that kind of stuff, there's another word that has kind of come about for that is cracker as well, so that could have a double meaning,
Oh.
maybe. But like I said, now I'm torn between several options on the title for the next one. So,
I kind of
I'm
like.
still working on it. We're going to see where it goes, and so then, like you said, it will probably evolve organically. Is that what you see? So
I kind of like Cracker too. I kind of like that because yeah, it is a double entendre.
Right.
it's
Entendre.
double.
A
It,
malicious hacker, and then also, can we all admit that that white racial slurs are fucking hilarious?
Yeah,
Cracker,
they're-
hilarious, hilarious, like
I mean,
just hilarious.
it'll not come clear when you meet some of the folks. And I always think of that line. I don't know if y'all are a fan of that movie. I'm talking about favorite movies. Oh, brother, where art thou? I think as I've gotten older and the more I've seen that movie
Yep.
over and over, the more I come to appreciate it. And I think of that scene where, you know, is it Pappy Menelaus is outside the radio station, and is it Tim Blake Edwards, I think, who says something to him, and he says, "Shut up, you dumb cracker." But it's like, I don't know. I don't think I caught that line the first time I saw the movie, and now upon repeated viewings, I just crack up. I don't know, but it's just, you know, I don't know. And then I started thinking, because I kind of want it to be, I don't know, there's something about that hard R at the end, and there's something about, you know, the one word title. And so, but those are some ideas that are floating around. And then it'll
It's
probably,
actually got four meanings: cracker, a malicious hacker; cracker,
okay.
the racial slur; cracker, the book hits with it, kind of it sort of cracks you in the jaw. And if there's enough violence in there, yeah, I'm gonna crack you in the fucking jaw. Like, so, like, it's got. I kind of like cracker. I kind of like it.
Well, y'all are helping me. I appreciate it. Helping me come to, because like I said, I was torn, but as it goes on, I will continue to consider that one, and I think
Sure.
I'm leaning in that direction, and especially with all the different meanings of it, I think that's making me go. It would fit just like how Poser fits for the main character, and for as you go on, other characters. And I think that's kind of with, you know, cracker. Well, it could be one thing, and then turns out it could be a lot of different things. So
I like it.
Now, before you leave, I'm under the understanding that the second book is done in at least one form or other, correct?
Yes, I would say it's mostly done. I'm going back and revisiting a few different parts of it, which have really been on my mind lately.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's done.
Okay.
There are just a few scenes and things that well, it was originally all one kind of long piece, and then I decided to make it a series, and so I've got to go back
Yeah.
and see kind of where I ended with Poser, the first in the series, and then be sure kind of, I don't know, I just kind of want to go back and look at it, alongside my outline, and I might want to tweak a few shorter parts of it, but it's pretty well. I was reading it through it the other night just to kind of get back into it, and it's pretty much done, and it's going to end the way I've got it pretty much for this portion. And I actually was thinking about how the series might end. I had like a vision the other day, and I had no real idea, but I'm starting to have, like I say, even if my mind is working, and then I'm going to get back into what was it called, the heat and fury, of the writing. But yeah, so it's coming clear, and y'all help me a lot with my title, so that helps me. That helps me have more of a working title for it. I appreciate it. It might turn out to be the actual title.
Sure.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, that's great. I mean,
it helps
that's
to talk
great.
it out. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you wanna, I mean, even if you're not doing you want to hit me up on, social media to kind of pitch an idea, I can tell you,
Okay.
give you my opinion. Yeah, because it does help to talk it out, and even
It
like
does. And you gave me some additional meanings that I wasn't entirely aware. You gave me some additional food for thought on that title.
well, for me, and I know Cody, I think you're the same way. Titles are very important, and oftentimes a title will drive a story for me. So like if I have the title, sometimes I don't have it, but if I have a title, I'm like, it gives me direction, right? So I mean, yeah, I mean, with all those different meanings, for even if you don't end up using the word cracker, even if that's a tentative title, you can think of all those different. I mean, this is what I would do is I would say, okay, it could be a malicious hacker. It can be a racial slur. It can be the book really bludgeons the reader, and it could be the actual violence in the book. Okay, good. Now I have a clear picture of
that. As I go back through the book with that in mind, that's going to help me a lot. Just having that up there, and then as I go back through and look at, revisit some of the parts. Some parts I've revisited more thoroughly than others. So as I go back through the whole thing, that's going to be in my mind. And I'm definitely leaning that way. Y'all help me. Thank you.
No problem.
Sure.
So until then, unless there's some kind of catastrophe, the second book should be released next spring.
Okay.
Until then, folks, go out and get Poser. Like I said, you'll love it.
Thank you.
Even if you have just a slight interest in noir, right, or a slight interest in, it'll keep you up at night. The characters are compelling. I mean, like I said, I mean, I'm repeating myself, but
well,
yeah, people have reported to me reading it several times.
So thank you so much.
Yeah, okay. We won't take up any more of your time. Yeah, we were at about the hour, whatever. So we won't. Yeah, you're busy, so we're all kind of busy.
Well, I've enjoyed it, and I will see you all soon. And I'll see you all on social media. And I look forward to reading some more of your books.
Well,
all right. Yeah, we got
them ready to go. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Take it easy, Nevada.
Thank you.
We'll see you.
Thank you.